There is a phenomenon that happens when a lot of guys get into a committed relationship, especially in their mid-20s and on. And the phenomenon is that when these relationships get serious, we isolate ourselves inside of them. We stop hanging out with our friends or our family as much. We stop engaging with the communities we've been a part of as much. And while a great relationship inherently takes time, I think this phenomenon of men isolating in relationships is the first step of a slippery slope of men in relationships becoming truly, dangerously isolated. And I think a lot of us, at some point in our committed relationships, realize this. We realize that suddenly those friends that maybe we used to count on, the people around us besides our romantic partner that made us feel good, aren't quite as accessible as they used to be. And in today's episode, I want to talk about when this recognition hit me and what happened when I decided to change it. Stay with me. This is Reclaiming the Gentleman. I'm Dave Lashansky. So when Vana and I first moved to San Diego, it was an amazing, exciting adventure, and I didn't know anyone out here. She'd gotten into acupuncture school, and after a couple of years in San Diego, she was well on her way. She had a cohort of students she was engaging with every day, and I was working alone in my office in my podcast business. I was working exclusively with clients on the East Coast, and my entire life was my relationship and my clients, which essentially meant the only person I was really engaging with on a regular basis, face-to-face, was Vana. And after a couple of years of this, of her being in school and me just working remotely, I started to get the inkling that something needed to change. And so I tried a bunch of different things. I tried joining a volleyball league, which was great and fun and not really my scene. I tried going out with the intention of making friends and really struggled with it. And I remember coming to her and saying, I need people. I need a community. I need friends. But I had no idea how to do it. And that feeling of loneliness had stopped creeping up on me and started to really cast a shadow over me. I felt isolated in a way that I had never felt before. And I think the truth is that by that time, I'd probably been isolated for years. Because before we came to San Diego, when I was in Boston with friends, many friends all around, I was acting essentially the same way, where the only person I saw on a regular basis was Vana. And while at the time, because my friends were close at hand, it didn't feel like a big deal. It felt like this is the next necessary step in this relationship that I want to take seriously. It felt normal, and it felt good. She was the one I wanted to spend time with. She was the person I wanted to make my community with. And until I had that recognition years later in San Diego of how alone I truly was, I never stopped to consider what kind of resources, what kind of community I needed outside of my romantic relationship. And I think a lot of guys end up in this situation without realizing it. And then when we finally do, it feels really hard to do anything to change it. And the real problem with this dynamic is what happens inside the relationship. Because what happens is when all we have for our community is our partner, suddenly they become everything to us. Suddenly, she becomes the place we go to share our wins with. She becomes the place we go to share losses with. She becomes the outlet for our emotional, spiritual, mental, physical needs. And it's too much for one person to bear. The biggest lesson I learned when I decided to change this dynamic was that one person cannot be your whole community. One person cannot be your everything. And I think a lot of adults today were kind of raised on this idea that your partner should be your everything, your safe place for anything. And while there are truths in that, when we isolate ourselves from others, when we cut off other options, other outlets for our expression, for us to be held, for us to hold, suddenly this person has to take on a job that is far too big for anyone to handle. And it's unfair to them. And frankly, it's unfair to us too. Because having a community around you to support you isn't just greeting card stuff. Having a support system, having friends, having brothers around you who can hold, makes your relationship a cleaner, safer, happier place. But when I was first recognizing that I needed friends, that I needed something outside the relationship, this is not where my head was. No, I was just thinking I wanted someone to hang out with, someone else. I wanted friends in my life. I wanted other men who had similar interests. I wanted to go and watch sports with people. I wanted to do things outside my relationship. I wanted a social life. And so after sports leagues and just going out on my own and trying to meet people at the gym failed, I decided to stick to what I know. I knew podcasting. So I put together a podcast course under the guise of a business development strategy. And I found a bunch of co-working spaces and offered to share my presentation on podcasting with them. And the nice thing about co-working spaces is they're always looking for free programming. So I found a few. And I went and I gave my podcast presentation to 3 different communities. And the third community I presented at was the least attended presentation I gave. There was a woman with a stroller with a dog in it. And there was a guy there who seemed really interested in podcasting and was super engaged. Woman with the dog, less so. So I essentially gave this presentation to this one guy, and we started to talk after the presentation, and we decided to keep meeting up to talk about podcasting. Well, after a few sessions at this co-working space, trying to figure out what his show could be like, him trying to help me in my business, he invited me to a men's circle that he was holding. And at the time, I had no idea what that even meant. And I was actually a little off-put by the idea of a men's circle. Wasn't something that appealed to me, but at the time I was so desperate for friendship. And this felt like the way to take this work relationship into a friendship and possibly to meet more people, to get more friends, that I couldn't pass it up. So I just said yes. And I went. And at that circle, I met people who would change my life. at that circle, I had an experience of being compelled to open up my heart to a group of strangers for no reason other than because it's what we need to do as men. Because my friend, the one who came to my podcast presentation, and the other men at that circle understood this thing that became very clear to me after a little while of going to those circles, which is this: every man needs a circle of men who can hold him and support him through his life and relationships. Yes, we need friends. Yes, we need community outside of our relationship. But more than anything, the most valuable thing to a man in a committed relationship is having a circle of men who can support him, who are there for the exclusive purpose to support him, to support each other, to come together for the express purpose of navigating life with a counsel. Since that first men's circle, I have attended hundreds. I have facilitated hundreds of men in similar spaces. And the revolutionary thing about it, the most amazing piece of this, is that the way it's set up is that every man gets the opportunity to speak for a set amount of time where no one will interrupt him, where the floor is simply and purely his, to share whatever and however deeply or not he wants to go. And there are men who take their 10 minutes on the floor and talk about sports and the weather and not a whole lot personal. And there are men who take their 10 minutes on the floor and bare their souls and talk about the worst things that have happened to them and talk about the biggest struggles in their life. And the best part about it is all of those responses are welcome and supported. The beauty of having a men's circle is that it can be whatever you need it to be for whatever season of life you're in. And I think it's hard to really appreciate how important and valuable that is until you've gotten to experience it, especially in a moment when you needed it. Because when I got to that circle and I sat with the discomfort that was coming up for me being in a group of men and being told, hey, here's 10 minutes, talk about anything that's happening in your life, and we're just going to listen to you silently. What I didn't realize was, this is what I've been looking for. This was exactly what I needed. And for so many men who find themselves feeling isolated in committed relationships, it's not necessarily the old friendships that once felt good. It's not necessarily the drinking buddies or the fellow sports fans that are going to give you that same support. And this is something I think every man needs to consider. Because in the relationships that you do have outside of your romantic partnership, when you think about those relationships, how supported do you feel in them? How do you come away from them feeling? If you're struggling with something with your partner, in your work, or whatever, do you feel like you have an outlet to share that pain in, to share whatever it is you might be going through? Because we all need that kind of space sometimes. And it's different from therapy because this is a group. This is a council committed to your betterment, committed to supporting you. Where in your life do you have that? Where you feel free to be authentic, to collapse in. See, because it's not just a problem that we isolate ourselves in relationship. It's a problem when we do that and we either can't collapse in front of our partner because we're too ashamed to, or we do collapse every time and they stop trusting us. Because as much as our partner may want to believe that they can hold all of us, and as much as we may want that from them, your relationship cannot be the place where you collapse in all the time. In fact, if you're just coming around to learning about who you are, to learning about your trauma, to learning about the reasons why you may be collapsing when things get hard, your relationship very well may be the last place you want to collapse in. And what do I mean by collapse? I mean really break down. I mean really bear it all. When I say collapse, I mean become the little boy who is afraid of the world attacking him, who is afraid he can't make it. Of course, your relationship needs to hold that sometimes. But there are far better ways to navigate those emotions and that experience than by relying exclusively on your partner. That is the magic of having a men's circle, a council that can hold. So if you're listening to this and looking at your relationship and recognizing that you may be a little more isolated than you previously thought, consider finding your counsel. And if you're not sure how to start doing that, get ready, because this coming year, I'm going to be starting a membership for men to come together once a month to do exactly this, to hold space for each other, to be the counsel, to be the brotherhood that can bear what your relationship might not be able to hold anymore, that can bear the feelings you can't express to your partner or are sick of only expressing to them. This men's circle is built on the premise of supporting each other, exploring the pain, and holding each other accountable to our highest vision for what we're capable of. I believe every single man in this world needs a men's group. And I'm excited to start offering that in 2026. So if you're interested in signing up for this, you can get in touch at dave@davelashansky.com or on Instagram at Dave_Lashansky. If you've never participated in a men's group, this is such a great one to begin with, because I do believe that compassion and gentleness are the way in for a lot of men. I hold containers with structure, with boundaries, with integrity, but I'm not here to push you to do 100 push-ups a day unless you feel like that's going to serve you. I'm not here to shame away the parts of you that I don't think are manly enough. No, I don't believe in a fixed version of masculinity, but I do believe we need certain things as men, starting first and foremost with our counsel, our brotherhood, our circle. I'm really excited to share this offering with you. And if any part of you feels drawn to this, please do get in touch. I would love to see you in this circle. And also, if you are looking to go deeper, if you are looking to really explore what is coming up for you in your relationship conflicts, why they feel so heavy, so escalated, and you want to change it, I am offering $100 off my 21-day transformational men's program until the end of the year. So if you're feeling the call to start 2026 committed to real growth, committed to making a change in your relationship, this is a great place to start. It is the kind of thing that when you bring to your men's circle, you will have so much more richness to share, so many more beautiful questions to ask, and a totally different way to navigate the things you find hard in your relationship, the hard conversations, the third rail topics, the stuff you haven't been able to address but have been longing to. I would love to see you in that circle too. You can sign up at the link in the show notes. Check it out. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you again. for your time and your ears. I'll be back in a week.